Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Gopijana Vallabha Girivaradhari Gopijana Vallabha Girivaradhari Yasodanandana Brajajana Ranjana Yasodanandana Brajajana Ranjana Yamuna Tiravanachari Yamuna Tiravanachari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Gopijana Vallabha Girivaradhari Gopijana Vallabha Girivaradhari Jasodanandana Brajajana Ranjana Yasodanandana Brajajana Ranjana Yamuna Tiravanachari Yamuna Tiravanachari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari
Thank you, Mahapati Prabhu. Jai Om Vishnupad Paramahamsa Parvikacharya Ashtostar Shri Srimad A.C. Bhakti Vedanta Swami Maharaj Prabhupada Ki Jai. ISKCON Founder Charya Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. Jai Om Vishnupad Paramahamsa Parvikacharya Ashtostar Shri Srimad Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Goswami Maharaj Prabhupada Ki Jai. Namacharya Srila Haridas Thakur Ki Jai. Prem se kaho Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Shivas Adi Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Ki Jai. Shri Shri Radha Krishna Gopa Gopinath Shamakun Radhakun Giri Govardhan Ki Jai. Shri Mayapur Dham Ki Jai. Shri Vrindavan Dham Ki Jai. Jagannath Puri Dham Ki Jai. Ganga Mai Ki Jai. Yamuna Mai Ki Jai. Bhakti Devi Ki Jai, Tulsi Devi Ki Jai, Ananta Koti Vaishnav Vrinda Ki Jai, Shri Harinam Sankirtan Ki Jai, Grantaraj Srimad Bhagavatam Ki Jai, Sama Bhakta Vrinda Ki Jai, Gaura Premanande, Hari Hari Bol. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to Shri Guru and Shri Gauranga. All glories to Srila Prabhupada. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya.
We're reading today from Srimad Bhagavatam. Srimad Bhagavatam, 5th Canto, The Creative Impetus, Chapter 11, Jada Bharata instructs King Rahugana, text number 7. Tavan ayam vyavaharaha sadavihi kshetragya sakshyo bhavati stula sukshmaha tasman mano lingam ado vadanti gunagunatvasya para-avarasya tavanayam vyavahara sadavi kshetragya sakshyo bhavati stula sukshmaha tasman mano lingamado vadanti gunagunatvasya para-avarasya tavanayam vyavaharak sadavi kshetragya sakshyo bhavati stula sukshmaha tasman mano lingamado vadanti gunagunatvasya para-avarasya tavanayam vyavaharak sadavi kshetragya sakshyo bhavati stula sukshmaha tasman mano lingamado vadanti gunagunatvasya para-avarasya
tavanayam vyavahara
kshetragya saksho
bhavati stula sukshma tasman manolingam ado vedanti para-avarasya tasman manolingam ado vedanti gunagunadasya para-avarasya tavanayam vyavahara sadavi tasman manolingam ado vedanti gunagunadasya para-avarasya. I can do it. Tavan, until that time. Ayam, this. Vyavahara, the artificial designations. Being fat or skinny. Or belonging to the demigods or human beings. Sada, always. Avihi, manifesting. Kshetragya, of the living entity. Sakshya, testimony. Bhavati, is. Stula sukshmaha, fat and skinny. Tasmat, therefore. Manaḥ, the mind. Lingam, the cause. Adaha, this. Vedanti, they say. Gunagunatvasya, of being absorbed in material qualities or devoid of material qualities. Para-avara, and of lower and higher conditions of life. Translation and purport by His Divine Grace, A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada. The mind makes the living entity within this material world wander through different species of life, and thus the living entity experiences mundane affairs in different forms as a human being, demigod, fat person, skinny person, and so forth. Learned persons say that the bodily appearance, bondage, and liberation are caused by the mind. Just as the mind is the cause of bondage, it can also be the cause of liberation. The mind is described here as para-avara. Para means transcendental, and avara means material. When the mind is engaged in the Lord's service, savai manaḥ, kṛṣṇa-padāravindayoḥ, it is called para, transcendental. When the mind is engaged in material sense gratification, it is called avara, or material. At the present moment, in our conditioned state, our mind is fully absorbed in material sense gratification. But it can be purified and brought to its original Krishna consciousness by the process of devotional service. We have often given the example of Ambarish Maharaj, Savai Mana kṛṣṇa-padāravindayoḥ vachamsi vaikunta guna nuvarmane. The mind must be controlled in Krishna consciousness. The tongue can be utilized to spread the message of Krishna and glorify the Lord, or to take prasad, the remnants of food offered to Krishna. Sevanmukhi HG Govardhana. When one utilizes the tongue in the service of the Lord, the other senses can become purified. As stated in the Narada Pancharatra, Sarvo Paddi Vinimurtan Tat para-avara nirmalam. When the mind and senses are purified, one's total existence is purified, and one's designations are also purified. One no longer considers himself a human being, a demigod, cat, dog, Hindu, Muslim, and so forth. When the senses and mind are purified, and one is fully engaged in Krishna service, one can be liberated and return home, back to Godhead. Om Jnana Timarandasya Jnana Jana Shalakaya Chakshurumritam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. Vanchakalpatarubhyascha kripa sindhuebhacha patitanam pavanebhyo vaishnavyo namo namah. Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Shivasari Gaura Bhakta-vrinda. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. I'll read the translation again. The mind makes the living entity within this material world wander through different species of life, and thus the living entity experiences mundane affairs in different forms as a human being, demigod, fat person, skinny person, and so forth. Learned scholars say that bodily appearance, bondage, and liberation are caused by the mind. So Srila Prabhupada, he says that the success of one's life is measured by one's material happiness in this life and liberation in the next. And liberation means going back home, back to Godhead, to enjoy eternally with Krishna, the all-attractive Supreme Personality of Godhead. And it's interesting how Srila Prabhupada, he mentions material happiness. And why would he say this? Did he mean happiness in the, as in a lot of money in the bank, a fancy new sports car, a nicely decorated mansion? So what did he mean by this? And when I go out on books, I would ask questions like, what makes you happy? And a lot of people would say, money makes me happy, or my dog makes me happy, or traveling makes me happy. But this material world is full of danger, illusion, and temporary. Padam padam yat vipadam natesham. There is danger in every step. This material world is dangerous. Is this not what we were taught? Not to enjoy this material world? So why did Srila Prabhupada say this? And the answer is because a devotee knows how to utilize this precious human form of life properly. And they know that Krishna is everything. We're also working in the material world, but our consciousness and our intention is different from an ordinary karmi or a fruitive worker. We are using our body, mind, and senses for Krishna's pleasure. Rishikena Rishikesha Sevanam Bhakti Ruchate. If all the senses are always engaged for the sense gratification of the master of the senses, Rishikesha, Krishna, the master of the senses, then things are engaged in pure devotion. Because we are all part and parcel of Krishna eternally, and the parts are meant to serve the whole. That is our natural or eternal dharma, or constitutional position. Anando Mayo Vyasat. Krishna is always blissful, and since we are parts of Krishna, we also desire bliss and happiness. Srila Prabhupada also answers that our whole movement is recreation. We dance, we sing, and if we get tired, we honor nice prasadam. Srila Prabhupada, he says, this is life. This is our real life in the spiritual world. There is no anxiety. There is no factories, no technical institution. There is no need. These are all artificial. In the Bhagavad Gita, Krishna says, Raja Vidya Raja Guyam Pavitram Idam Uttamam Pratyaksha-vagamam Dharmyam Susukam Kartam Avyayam. This knowledge is the king of education, the most secret of all secrets. It is the purest knowledge, and because it gives direct perception of the self by realization, it is perfection of religion. It is everlasting and is joyfully performed. Susukam Kartam Avyayam. And we are asking others to come and join us, to come and dance and to have a nice feast, but they're saying no. They would rather work hard, like what Prabhupada would say, cats and dogs, working hard all day and night. And yesterday, I was distributing books at Balboa Park, and I was observing people's faces. Whenever they would see a dog, their face would brighten up. They would get so happy. And then when they look at me, they see the sign, yoga and meditation, and you can see their face immediately go from smiling to frowning. So, and almost some of them look very angry. They walk around the table, they say, no, I have this, I'm good. And so we're handing flyers and invitations, but they're refusing. And just for fun, I wanted to see the top 10 New Year's resolutions. So they're as follows. The first one is to exercise more, to lose weight, to get organized, learn a new skill or hobby, live life to the fullest. That's a big one. I want to enjoy. Save more money, spend less money, quit smoking, or spend more time with my family and friends. When I ask people, do you have a New Year's resolution? And most of them, they fall in this category. And I tell them, what about self-development, self-growth? And then they kind of look back, say, yeah, I never thought about that, advancing a spiritual life. I was telling this man in La Jolla Cove about our books, and he said, yeah, that sounds good. I never thought of that. And then he asked me, what kind of books do you have? So I pointed, I said, these are on inner happiness and inner peace, and these books help you to understand who you are and what the purpose of life is. And then when I present the Beatles, I told them that, or the chant and be happy. This is the Beatles' experience with mantra meditation. How has it helped them in their everyday life, dealing with stress, anxiety? And Srila Prabhupada, he would often quote his spiritual master, Srila Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Thakur, that in the morning, the first business is to beat the mind 100 times with shoes. And before you go to bed, you beat the mind again 100 times with the broomstick. So why is this so important? The mind has a nature to accept something and to reject the same thing in a moment. So we cannot put any trust in the mind. The mind is a non-devotee. And Krishna says in the Bhagavad Gita, one must deliver himself with the help of his mind and not degrade himself. The mind is the friend of the conditioned soul and his enemy as well. For him who has conquered the mind is the best of friends. But for one who has failed to do so, his mind will remain the greatest enemy. And then in the purport, Prabhupada writes, mind absorbed in sense objects is the cause of bondage, and mind detached from the sense objects is the cause of liberation. I was showing this verse to this man in La Jolla Cove, and he immediately said, how much for the book? And I told him, we accept donations. So he called his wife and said, "Hey, do you have any more money? I want to get this book." And when I handed him the book, he just kept reading while he was walking. So they know that the mind, it causes so much difficulties, depression, suicide. And we also have practical experience. When there's a variety of choices, we don't know what to choose. I know the devotees, we don't go to ice cream shops, or I hope not. So we don't know whether to choose vanilla, strawberry, or chocolate. So it doesn't know what to choose. And of course, the devotees, we don't waste time in trying to enjoy, but we would rather prepare something nice for Krishna. And the mind, it would also give us options. Should I go to Mongol Arati? Should I go to class? Should I do my service? It will try to create excuses and justifications on reasons why we should not do service. I was out yesterday on book distribution, and I tell the people, these books, they free the mind from mental slavery. And then they don't hear about that, mental slavery. So I told them, yeah, these books, they help you to be free from, I told them that the mind, it dictates, go here, go there, buy this, buy that, wear this, wear that. And so they're becoming entangled. And I was listening to a class, and this Indian devotee, he was saying he wanted to buy clothes for his children in India. And he just wanted a plain, simple white shirt, a green shirt like that. And when he went to the different shops, they had a variety. And all of them had either name brands or pictures on it. They didn't have anything plain. So you can see how the mind, it wants to get this or get that. And it's all due to the people want to look cool. Like Dimitri and I were at the park, and this guy was posing next to these pillars, putting his hand in his pocket, looking up, trying to pretend like the camera is not there. So everyone's in this bodily conception of life. And how can they break free from this slavery if they themselves don't know they're in shackles? It's very difficult. So that's when a kind and merciful devotee tries reaching out to them. Hey, when we try to distribute books and flyers, we get a lot of responses that start with no thanks. And this one boy, he said, I like being stressed. And I told him, okay. He likes being stressed. Yeah, so they say a lot of foolish things. Or, I'm good, I'm all set. And Vijay Prabhu, he says, you could do better. When they say I'm good. So I've been saying that too, you could do better. Yeah. 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 Like 80% of the people, they're not happy. They're being dragged by their wife or their husband, or they're just trying to go somewhere so the kids could stop crying. And when they see a devotee happy and trying to hand him a book, they're a little shocked by it. And I asked people, why are there so many unhappy people in the world today? And they would tell me, oh, this and that. But I would tell them that they're looking for happiness in all the wrong places. The soul is searching after spiritual happiness, but it's trying to enjoy material happiness. And I use this example. The fish, if you bring a fish on land and you give it a big mansion, a fancy house, and nice clothes, it'll never be happy because it's not natural. It belongs in the water. So similarly, the soul, it belongs in the spiritual world. That's where real happiness lies. And I was at the Japanese Friendship Garden in Balboa Park, Vijay Prabhu's favorite sweet spot. And I told this man, these books are on inner happiness and inner peace. And this man said, no, I have everything. I have inner peace and inner happiness. And I asked him, what makes you happy? And he said, I have my family. I have my beautiful wife. I have my dog, a nice job, a roof over my head. What else do I need? So this is their definition of happiness. And Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu says, na janam na janam na sundarim kavitram va jagat ishva kamaye mama janmanishvari Bhavatad Bhaktir Ohaituki Twai. And he says, O Lord, I have no desire to accumulate wealth, nor do I desire beautiful women, nor do I want any number of followers. I only want your causeless devotional service, birth after birth. So this is the difference between a devotee's desire and a materialistic person. And the best way to capture someone's mind is through advertisement and commercials. The other day we were just talking about billboards, and what do the billboards have? They advertise so-called enjoyment. It's either alcohol, restaurants, casinos, or ideas on how to give pleasure to the mind, body, and senses. And it's actually liberating to not have to worry or carry this burden of trying to impress others, you know. It's a huge burden. Some people, they have to always buy new clothes every 3 months, new shoes. How their hair looks, or what type of career they have, what position they're holding. It's all superficial. And like Jadabara told King Rahugana, you may be the king and now you're serving in this life, but the roles can change in the next life. When I started before I was becoming a devotee, I was introduced to this word, minimalism. Try to have as little things as you can. So I didn't sleep on a bed. I was living very simple. I used a yoga mat as a bed, and I used a sleeping bag as a blanket, and the bottom part as a cushion. And I only had my altar in my room, and that's it. I didn't have any bookshelf, no furniture, nothing. And when my mom, when she came to visit us, she was so shocked. She said, "Glenn, where's your bed?" And that's my bed right there. And so she was really, she was confused. She was bewildered. And then so she always tells me, "I have a air mattress. I'll bring it over." And I told her, "No, it's okay, Mom. I don't need it. I've been sleeping there for a long time now." And my closet, it only had 3 pairs of shorts, 3 pairs of shirts, 3 pants, 3 jackets. I was really trying to reduce the amount of stuff I had. And when I moved into the ashram and I learned how valuable it is to be free from all this clutter and junk, I really appreciated Krishna consciousness. And I had a coworker. Her and her husband, they were thinking of moving to a new apartment. So they wanted to see how the layout looked in our condo. And so she wanted to see the stairs, how the bathrooms were arranged. And then so she said, "Where's your room?" So I brought her and her husband to my room, and she was like, it was so spacious. And then so the first thing she asked is, "Where's your bed?" So I pointed at my yoga mat again. I said, "That's my bed." And then so she looked around, and she couldn't believe it. And she just saw my altar on the corner, and then that's it. And so, of course, you know, the tendency of the conditioned soul is to look for faults. And she said, "Where's your trash can?" So I closed the door halfway, and then my trash bin was behind the door. And she said, "I've never seen a boy with such a clean room before." Because usually, you know, men were very so-called sloppy and this and that. And Srila Prabhupada, he would say simple living and high thinking. And Dmitry, our Russian friend here, he was telling me about his pastimes when he used to be a mover. And people would move into these small rooms, but they would have boxes and boxes of stuff. And their stuff, you can't even fit in the small room. And so people are hoarding and over-collecting. And it reminded me of this TV series called Hoarders. And it was shocking to see what type of living condition people would have. There was this episode where it was a dead cat, and the owners didn't even know. There was a dead cat, the canned foods were expired, there was the floor was made out of trash, and these people were thinking this is normal. And one of the junk removers, they asked him, "Hey, can we take this out? You know, you don't need this." And the owners, they got so angry. One of them was actually crying out of frustration. And he said, no, I need that. Someday I'll need that. And then, you know, a sane person, they look at that like it's trash. But for a person that's not in the right mindset, they see it as something valuable. And yesterday I met an interesting couple. One person was a financial advisor, and the other one was a life insurance manager. So I told this financial advisor, me too, I'm a financial advisor. He said, really, what can you give advice on? So I told him, if you made $100,000 billion, you can't bring it with you in your next life. And he looked at me like, that's right, that's true. So it was a nice reminder. So I looked at the lady and I told her, you sell life insurance? And she said, yeah. I said, okay. So I told her, is tomorrow guaranteed? And then she looked at me and she said, no. So I said, what are people working so hard for? We can't keep our wealth, we can't keep our car, our house, we can't keep this body. And 5 minutes is not guaranteed. So we should try to stress the importance of this life. And the mind is compared to a little child. This person was telling me that I can't do silent meditation. So I told him, that's good, we can't either. I told him this is not the age for silent meditation. And I told him that the mind is compared to a little child. If you tell the child to sit down and to stay in one place, you won't be successful for a long time. So I told him that the practice that we do is called mantra meditation. If you give the small child a toy to play with, then they'll be busy engaged. You know, they'll stay quiet. So we chant this mantra. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Nam, Hare Hare. So I tell him this mantra is the engagement for the childlike mind. And I told him you can chant it anytime, anywhere. There is no restriction on it. And Srila Prabhupada, he would say that this sound vibration is from the spiritual sky. There are unlimited universes, and this material creation is only 1/4 of Krishna's creation. And the rest are all spiritual. And the topmost material planet is called Brahma Loka, and the duration of life there is very long. And far, far above these material universe is the spiritual sky. And the topmost planet is called Goloka Vrindavan, and that's where Krishna lives. And this chanting of Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Ram Rama, Hare Hare. The sound, spiritual sound vibration is coming forth from that topmost spiritual planet. That's pretty amazing. And Srila Prabhupada has kindly taken the trouble to give us this mantra. Who else would have worked so hard to transform the lives of sinful persons all around the world? And so we should feel grateful and appreciative of what he has given us. And we don't talk about football games, movies, restaurants, fashion. No, we discuss Krishna Katha. We discuss on how we can help others find out or remember Krishna. And a kripana, or a miserly person, he has something valuable, but he doesn't share it with others. And we're not like that. We have the most valuable gem, and so we should extend our hand to anyone and everyone. And this is one of my favorite chapters in the Sri Chaitanya, or Chaitanya Charitamrita, Adi Lila, chapter 9. Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, he takes the role of a gardener. And he says, all the wealth in the three worlds cannot equal to the value of one such nectarian fruit of devotional service. Now considering who asked for it and who did not, nor who was fit and who was unfit to receive it, Chaitanya Mahaprabhu distributed the fruit of devotional service. And Lord Chaitanya, he requests, I am the only gardener. How many places can I go? How many fruits can I pick and distribute? It would certainly be a very laborious task to pick the fruits and distribute them alone. And still I suspect that some would receive them and others would not. Therefore, I order every man within this universe to accept this Krishna consciousness movement and distribute it everywhere. I am the only gardener. If I do not distribute these fruits, what shall I do with them? How many fruits can I alone eat? Distribute this Krishna consciousness movement all over the world let people eat these fruits and ultimately become free from old age and death. So this is the gift that we're trying to give others. And this is the reason why we go on Harinam, on book distribution, is to try to give this fruit of devotional service. When we went to downtown for New Year's Eve, Maharaj, Dravida Prabhu, Balaram, when we went out, it was so blissful, you know. Everyone was paying money to get into clubs, bars, restaurants. They were trying to enjoy. And the devotees were just chanting and dancing, you know. People would be looking at us. They would be taking photos, pictures. Some would even dance with us. And after midnight, we were walking back to the parking lot. And Balaram Prabhu, he led a very nice kirtan for 2 hours almost. His hand was beat up. And everywhere we went, everyone was just attracted by the devotees, how blissful we were. And everywhere that we went, we created a party. People were wondering, what is this? So people were dancing with us. People were even chanting the Hare Krishna mantra. It was very nice. They got an opportunity to chant Krishna's holy name. There was Tapas. He was holding the camera. He had this camera. He was recording everything for 3 hours. The devotees were blissful for 3 hours. Yeah, and these ordinary people, they may so-called enjoy their meal for, an hour? And on our way back to the car, we saw this group of people, and this Mataji, she was stumbling, like she was so intoxicated. And her friends had to hold her up. And I was thinking, I'm so happy that I'm not in that mindset anymore to be intoxicated and try to waste money. And so when we go on book distribution, we should remind people that I'm actually trying this now, and it has increased the book distribution. I tell them, and I got this inspiration from Maharaj and everyone here. I tell them that these are not books, these are opportunities to become a better person, to help others, to find spiritual happiness, and an opportunity to make a difference in the world. And when people hear that, they say, wow, I want to have a book. And I tell them, yeah, these books are very special. And when we tell them that we're just asking for a donation, they're so happy. And this one person asked them, how much would a book like this cost at a bookstore? And this person told me $50. And I said, we're accepting donations. So she was telling me, do you have Venmo? And I said, yeah. So she was busy typing, and then she said, this is what I'm going to give you. And she showed me. It was $100. Yeah, this was in La Jolla Cove. So when people hear this, they get inspired. They want to become a better person this year. And I told them that these are life-changing books. And I told them it definitely made a difference in my life. So we're just trying to share it with others. Okay, that's all I have. Hare Krishna. Is there any comments, questions, corrections?
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. Vijay Krishna Prabhu, if you could please wait. We're trying to see if there's any local questions.
Of course, Prabhu, I can wait. No problem.
Just you were very nice class, by the way, full of life. You were saying how the kirtan after midnight was super sweet, and that is the best time, because what actually happens, and I've talked to the folks down there, they've tried everything else. They're all building up, and then it's, they count down, and what? They don't feel any different. It's over, the big build-up. They didn't get a big boost. They spent all their money. They're completely intoxicated. Nothing else worked. And they see the devotees chanting, and they join in. It's the best time is after, because they realize nothing else is working. So you're right.
And I also heard that there was no fireworks around here. Usually there's a big, fireworks celebration, but there was none.
Really?
Yeah, I was talking to somebody when we got back, and they said there was no fireworks around here, or they didn't hear any fireworks. Yeah.
Hare Krishna, Prabhu.
Krishna.
So you talked about the person you met who was very happy in his life because of his beautiful wife, mansion, car, everything. What do you say to that person? Because, I mean, I have a lot of those kind of people in my life. I was one of them. And for me, it took a self-journey, self-reflection, an introduction of Bhagavad Gita in circumstantial way that changed it. But in conversation, how do you approach that kind of person?
That's right. I heard this, that an expert physician must begin treatment according to diagnosis. So I see where the people are at, and then I would say one or two sutras to kind of get their mind working. I tell them, well, at the end of life, would you be able to bring them with you? Something like that, to kind of shock their... And so they would tell me no. And I'd tell them, well, there's a better alternative to find spiritual happiness, and that's eternal. And everybody has free will. That's the difficulty. You know, it's up to them to either accept good advice or not. And yeah, I would just say a lot of people, they don't want to hear the truth. You know, they want to be covered in ignorance, or they want to stay asleep. So you just have to, you can also show by example that these things, it didn't work for me, like what Maharaj was saying. So when you show by example, they say, hey, I want to know what you're doing. So that's my example, or my answer.
Hare Krishna. Not to be harsh, but I saw a T-shirt the other day that said, "There's no fixing stupid." So some people, they're just lost in the modes of nature. You know, give them some prasadam, let them hear Hare Krishna next time around. But if somebody was thinking, you say, "Great, but how long will it last?" And if you ask a kid, you ask every kid you talk to, "How old are you?" "I'm 6.5. I'm 12 and 3 months. I'm almost 13. They all want to get older. They all want to get older. They all want to get older. Everybody knows that. You ask an old person, "How old are you?" Say, "Let me guess." Whatever you guess younger. You know they're 70. Say, "Oh, you look 65. They say, "Really?" So if you look at it, everybody wants to get older, older, older. And on this spectrum, they all want to get younger, younger, younger. And if you actually check it out and ask them, they want to get older till around, even 21, 22, they'd like to be a little older. They get there around 24, 25. I don't want to get older. And they want to get younger, younger to about 30. So if you say, look, I mean, let's just be dispassionate and look at the numbers. If you live 80 years, or 70 years, whatever, you're only really happy with your body for about 5 years. So what does that say? 5 out of 80, what's the percentage? And if you look at it, you know, married, they get old, they get fat, they die. So, you know, that's not, you're taking a flash, a photograph of one segment, and you're saying this is happiness. But look, what's going to happen? You've got to, Krishna says, I am time, the destroyer of all things. So you got to get him to look. You know, fine, but how long is it going to last? And what happens when it's over? One of the things the devotee said to me, the devotee said, one of the first devotees I met, said, this whole world, everyone's suffering. I said, well, maybe you. I said, I'm in a pretty good spot myself, you know. And then, you know, I was turned to walk away, and the devotee says, but one thing about this world. I said, what's that? He said, nobody gets out alive. I said, you're right. So you got to wake them up. They're in a torpor. Yes. Slumber.
Anyone else?
Now we can take our
Okay. Okay, Vijay Krishna Prabhu.
Yes, Govardhan Prabhu, thank you very much. You're very kind. The quote from the purport related to the verse you chose for today, 5:11:7, is as follows. Quote, it is the last sentence of the purport. Quote, when the senses and mind are purified and one is fully engaged in Krishna's service, one can be liberated and return home back to Godhead, end quote. So Prabhu, based on, quote, return home back to Godhead, end quote, my question is, can you give me even one symptom that shows that a living entity, although still living in a material body, in the material world, is already back home, back to Godhead?
The perfect example is Srila Prabhupada. If you observe his life, he was so compassionate. He was also happy. He wanted to share this with everybody. And even Srila Prabhupada, he said we could be living in this material world but still be Krishna conscious, meaning we transcend these material modes and also our so-called mind. The mind is still material, and we should remember that we're not the mind, the senses, or the body. And can anybody add to that? Okay, thank you. Dravida Prabhu has an answer.
It's very dramatic.
Yes.
Prabhupada's in 26th Avenue, and I used to drive down that avenue a lot in one of my New York days, and it's very busy, you know. So he's giving a class, and you can hear the sounds of the cars stopping and going and braking and all these things, you know, and kids screaming outside. And so one time he said, he would always insist the door would stay open so people could come in. I said, actually, I'm not here in you know, next to this noisy street. And, you know, I'm actually in Vrindavan because that's where my consciousness is. In other words, you never leave. So really that is, and of course, you know, completely conscious of Krishna in the spiritual world. So that's a perfect symptom, and the result of that you can see in the person's demeanor, very tolerant, equipoised, is right in the Bhagavad Gita. As someone who is on that platform, is undisturbed by happiness and distress, and just goes on, you know, serving Krishna as long as the body is moving, you know, and afterward, but in a different plane. So that's the symptom. Is someone, and Lord Chaitanya talks about that. You can see someone can be very peaceful, but you struggle through the verses about Ambarish. So he was classic, that he was undisturbed. He was so absorbed in Krishna consciousness that even though he was attacked by this fiery demoness who was going to burn him to ashes, he was completely, you know, whatever. It didn't matter. Whereas Durvasa, who wasn't on that plane, when the Chak came after him, he ran like anything. He was full of fight. So these are some of the symptoms. You read Bhagavad Gita and you'll see, you know, the symptoms of someone who's in the transcendental, fixed in the transcendental.
Thank you, Dravida Prabhu.
Yeah. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna, Dhanavar Mataji.
Hare Krishna. Prabhu, I have a question. Thank you for a very nice class. I have a question in regards to this equipoise and tolerance and, you know, compassionate toward people. So I have asked this question before, but I still want to know more. When we are in a social norm, in a householder, we have to do, you know, go out and, you know, do, even though we don't want to go to restaurant, or they are doing, not family, but extended family or friends, they're eating meat and drinking. And then I'm telling my example that I got disturbed, and then somebody said, you shouldn't be disturbed because you should be, my mind like make faces and all that. I couldn't stop expressing internally, and people can see from my faces that I didn't like. And so somebody mentioned that you shouldn't get disturbed, you should be happy. And I'm in distress in any situation if you're practicing Krishna consciousness for this many years. So in my question, I was kind of thinking that, yeah, I am not there yet. I'm chanting and all, but I'm not, I cannot, I get disturbed easily. And so in that case, how do we get, without disturbing or making faces, how do we like tolerate, and what, is it right to do that? I just want to know. Thank you.
Maharaj, would you like to answer this, please?
You know, on one hand, if I see somebody torturing a child or you know, abusing a woman, oh, just be peaceful. Just be shanti shanti. You know, I thought you were equipoised. No. Any compassionate person will intervene. So it's natural that they're stuffing these bones and feathers in their face. And what about the poor animals they tortured? And, you know, they're glug, 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 killing themselves with whatever. So it's natural that we're disturbed. So, you know, and that disturbance is not that we're personally agitated, but it's a natural reaction out of compassion for them and compassion for others. So to try to like do some weird mental game that you're supposed to stand here while I snack on a dead animal, and if you don't just, you know, if you're not completely peaceful and smiling, some kind of happy smiley face slapped on your mug, then, you know, you're not transcendental. That's just completely bogus. I could never say, if some old lady gets hit by a truck because somebody ran through a red light, I don't go out and help her because I'm equipoised. So that's bogus. The other thing is, if you're in a social circumstance, like I get invited to weddings, I get invited to receptions and anniversary parties, and I say, look, you know, to the person inviting me, I say, what am I supposed to do? If they're going to be drinking and eating meat there, my presence condones that. And no one's, so don't go. And if they take you by surprise, you can politely, I mean, you don't have to stand there and make, you know, pull angry faces and, you know, kick them in the shins and stuff like that, you know, trip the waiter with the hors d'oeuvres. But you shouldn't stay there, because staying means condone it. You know, if you're at somebody else's house, you know, you say, well, okay, like I've been at things I've had to go to for, you know, whatever. My brother's wedding. I said, I'll stop in. But I'm not going to stand around for 3 hours while people eat, you know. I can't condone that by my presence. So that's, let's hear what others have to say, but that's one thing you can do.
Thank you,
But don't try to, what it's called, that blame shifting is the California slogan. When they're actually doing something wrong, but they try to shift the guilt and blame onto you. You know, why are you making me feel bad? Well, because you're doing something bad, and it's not going to help you. My disdain is an act of compassion to help you wake up. But a lot of times, you know, you can't just do that. You can't, you know. I was at a program, and you know, it was supposed to be vegetarian and this and that. You know, it was some Indian group, and when we finished our bhajan and katha, they started serving out chicken pakoras. We said, we got to go. I can't stay here. Well, oh, we've got cauliflower too.
Thank you so much, Maharaj. Very good.
My mother, because yeah, it's like nowadays super common to, you know, people want to go to restaurants and this and that, family, extended family. So my mother, what she tells them, she says, I'm sorry, but, you know, I just can't go. It just makes me sick, you know. The food, you know, I don't know who's cooking. It's just, you know, the food's not good. It just makes me sick. So sorry, I can't go. But if you love me, you want to spend time with me, then, you know, you go with your other family to the restaurant. You have a good time. You know, you enjoy yourself. And we could do something else. We could take, you know, tomorrow we'll take a walk in the park, or, you know, whatever. There's other things to do besides go to restaurants. Mm-hmm. Like my mother and myself were invited to some some old town restaurant or something, and my mother and myself, we went there, and you know, they're all eating in there, and while they're eating, she told all of them, okay, hey, we're going to take a walk, so, you know, we'll see you guys when you're done. So, take a walk, and then they're done, and that's it. So, anyways, those are just some.
Thank you for sharing. Very helpful. Ram Prabhu.
Okay,
Dravida Prabhu, as you just gave examples of Maharaj Ambrish and Durvasa Muni, and we have a lot of these examples of Prahlad Maharaj that, even under the attack, they were equipoised and not disturbed, not distressed. Being a devotee, even though not a first-class devotee, unless you are sitting in some sadhana or pranayam where you are completely withdrawn from the world, Maya would still find a way to attack you in one way or another. But your chances would be less because you are away from the world and withdrawn from all your senses. But being a devotee, when you are actually trying to engage in the world and using your actions, there will be some first-person attacks, verbally and sometimes even physical attacks. And when one associates oneself with the self, like associates self with the spirit and not the body, what would be the extent of the self-defense in that case? Like some would say it would be okay to harm the other person to defend your body because that's a property of Krishna as well. Or,
Physical attack? What are you talking about?
Yeah, physical attack. So if someone physically attacks you, what extent of self-defense is appropriate?
Have you ever been physically attacked because you said, hey, I don't need to eat? Somebody
No, I'm not talking about this example. Just like even if you are just out and about in a normal situation, not even preaching, what would be the position of devotee?
You need to give 6 reasons that you can defend yourself. If they attack with a deadly weapon, if they come under the house,
Maharaj, can you please use the microphone?
You have a right to defend. No, we got to roll on. You got a right to defend yourself. That's common sense.
But what would be the extent? Like, can you harm the other person physically? Can you kill the person?
Defense.
Just block it.
That's your duty. If you're shot, they should fight the Nazis. That was the right thing to do. You had to stand up and fight and kill them. So, if there's, Dharma is offended, you have to stand up and defend. But how often are you in that situation, honestly? You have a right to defend yourself. You have the right to defend your defendants. Defense is the best thing. And if the person won't stop, then it's, you got to stop them.
Talk to Vijay. He's been out, he's run a situation like that, and he's got a lot of stories about that. Devotees outside, in the airport from getting attacked and so forth like that.
I don't think he's quite talking about that. 'Cause there's all kinds of para-avara issues that you're out.
Can you please use microphone? We cannot hear you.
Attack. Anyway, let's roll on. Let's talk about a real situation.
Grand Srimad Bhagavatam ki jai. Agor Prabhupada.